The book buying ban is not going well. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So here we are again with another book haul. So the book buying ban is not going well for 2021, like I said in the introduction, but that's okay. I found some amazing deals and I just couldn't say no. So let's get into it. In this section, I'm going to split this up into two sections like I did last month. So this part I will be featuring the newer books that I bought, and in part two we will be having a look at the vintage gems that I found, and I found quite a few, so stay tuned for part two that will be coming out in the next video. And of course, before we get into the haul, please make sure to click the subscribe button below and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any of my uploads. So jumping in here, the first book that I got was Chosen by Kiersten Whyte, and this is the second book to Slayer, which I'm actually currently reading right now. I gotta say, I haven't been loving it. I'm hoping that it turns out to kind of change its tune a little bit, but we'll get into that in my February wrap-up. So I always do this to myself. I end up buying the entire series and then, you know, just lose interest after the first book. So we'll see how the first one goes, and this is its companion. The entire series is just a duology, so if it turns out that I don't like Slayer and I don't get to this one, at least I'm only out one book. The next book that I got was A Guide for Murdered Children by Sparrow, and I haven't heard anything about this book, but it sounded so interesting to me. So basically this book surrounds the premise that the spirits of murdered children can come back and possess other people's bodies so they can exact revenge against the people that took their lives away. And it says on the inside here, terrifying, thoughtfully original, and hauntingly written, A Guide for Murdered Children is a psychological thriller and otherworldly surprise. And it says, mystical, harrowing, and powerfully moving, A Guide for Murdered Children is a genre-busting, mind-bending twist on the fine line between the ordinary and the unfathomable. So this really, really intrigued me. Like I said, I haven't heard anything about it on BookTube at all, but I'm gonna give it a go, and this cover is just fantastic. So the next few books that I got were part of the Dream of Eagle series by Jack Whyte, and I talked about this series a little bit in my February TBR. I am planning on rereading, I guess, the first book in this series. And if you don't know anything about this series, it kind of revolves around the premise that King Arthur and Camelot and Merlin and all of that descended from Roman Britain. So this entire series is kind of a prequel to everything that happened in Camelot, and it really revolves around how the area was all put together and how it came about. So I have book one as an ebook because even the paperbacks are fairly expensive, but I did find a couple of them on Book Outlet and they were actually having a sale. So I've got book 3 in the series, book 5, and book 6. So hoping to find more of these fairly cheap. If not, I'll just buy the rest of the series on Amazon or Chapters or wherever. Yeah, but I was happy to find a couple of them that were fairly cheap anyway. So the next book that I picked up was The Forbidden Library by Django Wexler. And this is kind of a middle grade fantasy, and it follows Alice, who after her father dies tragically in a shipwreck, she is sent to live with a mysterious uncle who she's never met before, and she discovers that her uncle has a massive library in his house, but unfortunately it is off limits to Alice. And just from that right there, I was really sucked in. I love books that are about libraries and bookstores and university bookstores and that sort of thing. And in this story, Alice, one night a talking cat comes into her bedroom, and sneaks her into the library, and the cat dares her to open one of the library books, and Alice discovers herself actually in the story of the book in the library, so she gets sucked right into the story, and the only way out is to defeat the terrifying monster that's part of the story. So this sounds so whimsical and fun, and I absolutely love middle grade. I haven't been with the whole YA thing recently. I've read some really good books that are YA, but I find that with middle grade, they're just so imaginative and they don't have a really heavy emphasis on romance. So I'm really looking forward to this one. So I also found a couple of Adam Nevill books, and as I've said 100 times already this year, that I absolutely love Adam Nevill's writing. So we have Last Days, and this follows Kyle, who is an indie filmmaker, and he lands a commission to do a documentary on a cult called the Temple of the Last Days, and this cult met a very bloody end in the Arizona desert in 1975. So when Kyle starts to do his investigation and he starts interviewing some of the survivors of this cult, strange things start to happen. So it just says on the back here, when Kyle interviews survivors, uncanny events plague his shoots. Frightening out-of-body experiences and nocturnal visitations follow, along with the discovery of ghastly artifacts, until Kyle realizes too late that they've become entangled in the cult's hideous legacy. So I love stories about cults, and I think this is going to be really fascinating. And of course, Adam Nevill's writing is just fantastic. And the other Adam Nevill book that I got was House of Small Shadows, and it says on here, The Red House, home to the damaged genius of late M.H. Mason, master taxidermist and puppeteer, where he lived and created some of his most disturbing works. The building and its treasure trove of antiques is so long forgotten, but the time has come for his creations to rise from the darkness. And here we follow Catherine Howard, who I think she's like an antique buyer or something like that, and she is invited into the house to value all of these artifacts that are in the house that used to belong to this taxidermist and puppeteer. So I mean, we've got some creepy dolls, I think, happening here, and of course strange things start to happen. And it says, the Red House has secrets. Secrets as dreadful and dark as those from Catherine's own past. At night, the building comes alive with noises and movements, footsteps and fleeting glimpses of small shadows on the stairs. And soon the barriers between reality, sanity, and nightmares begin to collapse. So again, sounds totally creepy. I love creepy dolls, meaning I get terrified by creepy dolls. So this one I think is going to be right up my alley. And next up we have The Sleep Room by F.R. Tallis. And this is another one that I haven't heard anything about, but it sounds totally intriguing. So here we follow a young psychiatrist who is just starting out, and he gets a job at a place called Wildthorpe Hall in deep Suffolk. So in this place, they have a controversial therapy where the most disturbed and deranged patients are kept asleep for months and months on end. And of course, when the young psychiatrist comes in and he starts to find out that there's something kind of uncanny with these 6 patients who are the most deranged of all of them. And then he also notices that the young nurse, when she is on nighttime duty, she's really on edge and she seems to be very scared to be left with these patients. And it says here, and what can it mean when one night all the sleepers start dreaming at the same time? It's not long before Richardson finds himself questioning everything he knows about the human mind and attempts to uncover the shocking secrets of the sleep room. So I think we have some psychological horror going on here, and of course takes place in this old sort of hall in the middle of nowhere, and I think this is going to be really creepy. Let me know down in the comments if you have read The Sleep Room. So next up I have The Girl on Legare Street by Karen Whyte. And again, this is one that I haven't heard anything about, so totally new to me. And here we kind of follow a mother and daughter who have been estranged for many, many years. And the mother has a premonition that the daughter is in trouble. So the women are reunited and they go back to their hometown and move into their ancestral home. But on top of this, the house is haunted. The two women are able to communicate with ghosts, and they stir up an old dark evil who is dead set on revenge. So again, you guys know my love of haunted houses, so this one seems like it's going to be really fantastic. It's just a little book, and again, let me know if you've read this one. So next we have The Secret of Crickley Hall by James Herbert, and I have never read any of James Herbert works. His books seem to be fairly big, so that's kind of intimidating to me a little bit because I usually like my horror to be fairly quick. But we'll see how this one goes. I actually have another James Herbert book there that I also got, but this sounds so good. So it says, would you stay in a haunted house for more than one night? Would you live in a place where ghostly things keep happening? Where the cellar door you know you locked the night before is always open the following morning? Where hushed and whimpering sounds can be heard? Where white shadows steal through the darkness? Where the presence of evil is all around you? So again, another haunted house story. So we'll see how this one goes. Like I said, he's, you know, so popular, but I've never read any James Herbert, and this is fairly chunky, so we'll see how this one goes. So the other James Herbert book I got was Ash, and I got both of these also on Book Outlet. They were having a buy one get one 50% off sale. I was a little bit disappointed because this one came torn. The dust jacket was torn, but honestly, it is the first time I've ever had a problem with a book from Book Outlet, so you know, it's not a big deal. I usually take the dust jackets off anyway. So this one is apparently part of a series that follows a ghost hunter and a parapsychologist named David Ash. So this is the third book in the series, but what I can kind of tell, you don't really have to read the books in order. So it kind of seems like it's a standalone a little bit. And it says, set high on a craggy cliff top in wind-battered western coast of Scotland is a remote, secluded ancient castle. A castle that holds secrets that would shake the world if they were ever revealed. So again, same sort of thing, haunted castle, middle of Scotland, ghost hunter. This one is huge as well, so we will see how this goes and see what I think about James Herbert. So next up we have What Big Teeth by Rose Szabdo, and this is a new release. It just came out a couple of weeks ago, and I think this is on a lot of people's TBR for February, so I'm going to try to get to this one this month as well. I totally forgot it was coming out, so I didn't have it as part of my TBR, but it was one of my most anticipated releases of 2021. And here we follow Eleanor, who is estranged from her family, and she is living at a boarding house, but when something terrible happens at the boarding house, she runs back to the family that she has never known, but apparently her family is really, really monstrous and they're necromancers, and Eleanor has no experience with living with this type of family. So what I read when I first heard about this book was it was geared towards lovers of the Addams family, and at the bottom here it also says, exquisitely terrifying, beautiful, and fierce. This genre-bending fantasy debut will sink its teeth into you and never let go. So hoping to get to this one in February. So if I do, and of course since it is a new release, I will do a full review for you and let you know my thoughts. So another new release that I picked up this month was The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. And this one is a book that revolves around, you know, kind of that small town with big buried secrets kind of thing. And this sounded really intriguing to me. It says, a dark history lingers in Chapelcroft. 500 years ago, Protestant martyrs were betrayed, then burned. 30 years ago, 2 teenage girls disappeared without a trace. And a few weeks ago, the vicar of the local parish hanged himself in the nave of the church. So here we follow a reverend. Her name is Jack Brooks, and she is also a single mother, and her daughter move to this town, and kind of immediately they get sucked into all of this sort of small town that doesn't like outsiders, and they figure out that there's a lot of mysteries going on here. And it says, she is greeted with a strange welcome package, an exorcism kit, and a note that warns, but there is nothing covered up that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known. So this sounds really interesting. It sounds like it's going to be kind of a fast-paced mystery, and I mean, just from the fact that it has to do with an exorcism kit and long ago murders and all of that, this sounds really interesting to me, and I'm hoping to get to this one really, really soon. So next up, I found a couple of Fear Street. Of course, it wouldn't be one of my hauls without some R.L. Stine. And these, of course, are reprints. They're not the originals. These came out in the early 2000s. But we have Halloween Party, and it says RSVP if you dare. And we have The Rich Girl. Would you kill to be rich? So like I said, you know, these weren't the originals, they're reprints, but Halloween Party especially is one that I've really, really wanted to read. So when I saw these and they were literally like $2 each, I went ahead and picked them up. And the last two books that I got in this haul were a couple of classics. So we have Wuthering Heights, and this cover is beautiful with all of the green foil. And we have Jane Eyre, which is, I wouldn't say it's my favorite classic. I think Wuthering Heights might be my favorite classic, but Jane Eyre might be a close second. So I've wanted to start collecting classics again. These are okay. They're kind of that faux leather binding, and the font is pretty small, so we'll see how these go. They seem to be a little bit cheaply made, but since they were so cheap, and like I said, I got buy one get one 50 off, I went ahead and picked them up. So we'll add these to the shelves. And there you go. That was part one of my February book haul. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you like this type of video, give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below on if you've heard of any of these new releases, if you're excited for them, and let me know if you've read any of those obscure books in there that I haven't heard of before. But until next time, guys, stay spooky. Bye.